I'm Joe McClinton, and Celine has asked me to talk a little bit about the process of how we make the supertitles for our shows. The titles start off as a project in translation. I've been a translator for many years, and it needs to be translated because nobody's seen this stuff in 350 years or whatever, and you're not going to be able to go online and find a plot summary or something. Also, modern singers are not particularly experts at reading 17th century Italian. So you need something to translate. You need a text, and that's where it all starts. We have photocopies of the original printed version of a libretto, which is what the text of the words of an opera are called, from back in 1680 or whenever, and it'll look something like this. It comes with all the problems that go hand in hand with that. It's got the old-fashioned typography where the F's look like S's and vice versa, and it's got typos and poor reproduction and all kinds of goodies like that. We also have another source for the words, and that's copies of the handwritten score, the music. Now this isn't the composer's handwriting, it's a copyist's handwriting. It looks like something like this. And the text in the score isn't always necessarily the same as the text in the printed libretto, because librettos were considered literature in their own right, and so they were published separately. And different composers would compose them and add and subtract things to suit themselves. At some point, Celine and her musical collaborators get together and work out a performing score in modern notation for the musicians to use, and that's our final version. It looks something like this. And meantime, I make a rough translation, line by line, of whatever I have at that particular point. And that's some months before the rehearsals actually begin. Somewhere then in the process of things, Celine and I get together and she lets me know how she's planning to deal with certain kinds of scenes, so I know whether to take something in the direction of being funny or being especially sad or whatever. And then I can rough out what I might do with the titles, but I can't really know what to do with them until we get into rehearsals. Meantime, we've got a rough translation that looks like this, line by line, and that's something that the singers can use to get oriented. We finally get into rehearsal and we know then what the artists are actually going to put into the scene, and that makes an enormous difference in how I handle the titles. Also, the score doesn't have any tempo marking, so I don't know until we're actually hearing this stuff how much time I'm going to have for a given kind of title. Maybe I'm going to have a lot of time and I can draw things out, put a lot more information, or it's going to go very fast and I've got to condense a lot. During rehearsals then, I take these raw titles and condense them down even farther into really short snippets, around 72 characters or so. That's about the length of an old-fashioned tweet. I have to write these so the audience can absorb the ideas and the emotions and whatever really quickly, and then just go back to watching the performers, which is what really counts. I put all that condensed stuff into some very simple PowerPoint slides that look like this. And depending on the length of the show and how talky it is, there could be anything from about 600 to 800 of these slides. And during the show then, I sit up in the light booth and I follow my own score, which by that point looks like this. It's got all my cues and things in it. So, and I'm pushing the button as the performance goes along to bring up the titles. So I never actually have ever had a chance to see any of our productions entirely from end to end because I've been up in the booth punching buttons, but it's enormous fun to be part of this whole collaborative, creative process, and I wouldn't miss it for the world.